As the war in Ukraine continues into its third week, despite Biden's poor attempts to bankrupt Putin, hundreds of civilians are now dead, and thousands of Ukrainian and Russian soldiers lie lifeless in the snow. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has global effects, from the surging fuel prices here at home and across the world to the over 2.1 million Ukrainian refugees who have now fled for safety in neighboring countries. The dark shadows of World War II rear their ugly head as the world prepares for what could be another global conflict. Today, I break down the latest developments in the Russian invasion and what our country and today's politicians are doing that could send American men and women in uniform into a new showdown. The liberal hawks are circling, and the stench of death could consume us all. I'm Eric Wright, and you are listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the pains of war are real. Ask the over 2.1 million Ukrainians that have fled their homeland and the other 2 million displaced across the country due to Putin's conflict in Ukraine. As our Christian brothers and sisters endure death and despair, Americans here at home fear. That's right, they fear. And they fear financial security as gasoline and grocery prices continue to soar out of control. The new problem? Well, Joe Biden and his asinine clowns of his administration do not know how to handle the ex-KGB madman of Vladimir Putin and his inner circle. You see, some things cannot be bought or influenced with money. I know this is something that today's American liberals have difficulty understanding. After all, Democrats in our country believe that money can solve all the world's problems. Throw a couple million here, a few more hundreds of billions there, or better yet, let's throw a multi-trillion-dollar piece of legislation against the wall and see what sticks. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, the dangerous mentality is what has helped Democrats doom our nation for generations. Joe Biden believes that he can put the financial squeeze on Vladimir Putin and he will pack up his remains and head back to Moscow. But I'm here to tell you that Putin and his version of manifest destiny will not be denied. He cannot and he will not lose. For if he does, he and his vision and stranglehold on the Russian people and his power will fade away. Putin will not go quietly into the night. What is quite clear is that Putin does not care about Americans and cares even less about the Ukrainian people and those who die below the flag of his own country. The increased body count is irrelevant to him, and in fact, Putin is absolutely okay with every soul perishing as long as his dream of Russian reunification is complete. Because of Biden's ignorance, our country is less secure than it was just 3 weeks, 3 months, or a year ago. There isn't one global leader that believes that he has, or says that he has, the muscle in his administration and what they portray and flex across the world stage. You see, folks, Putin's plan is more than just Russian reunification. It's to embarrass the United States. Like the Germans and Japanese 2 generations ago, he aims to bring our nation into another world war. The United States is not prepared for a showdown with Russia this time. Is even less minded for a joint engagement against the Chinese. Will undoubtedly align with Putin should the U.S. military involve itself. For over 3 weeks, the liberal hawks of war have been circling around Capitol Hill, whispering in Biden's ear that somehow, some way, ramping up the pressure and military assistance to Ukraine is in the best interest of the United States and that of our people. But I'm here to tell you that this is a war that we cannot involve ourselves in unless provoked. In the late 1930s, due to Hitler's aggression in Europe, Winston Churchill daily begged then President Franklin Roosevelt to get involved and join the Allies against the Axis powers in World War II. It would take 2 years, folks, after the German invasion of Poland and the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor before American boys and men suited up and headed to the beaches of France, Italy, and the islands of the Pacific. But you see, then and now, even Roosevelt knew that our nation was not prepared without direct provocation and lacked the will to fight in yet another global conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, While I cannot stomach the mass atrocities occurring every hour across Ukraine, I, like so many others across the nation, do not want this war with Russia. But I'm here to tell you that our now president and those within his liberal circle are preparing for just that. And the price of such a decision will be too much and too many for us to bear. For over 20 years, the United States has expanded NATO alliances across Europe and intentionally put the military squeeze on Russia. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States has fought a proxy military installational war against Russia in countries like Poland and Romania and Estonia, setting up missile deployment and defense systems which, in the eyes of Putin, threaten the sanctity and security of his people and jeopardizes his power. Some of you listening today may believe that these acts are just fine and that they are in the best interest of our global community and commitment to our NATO allies. But I'm here to tell you, what would the American response be should Russia place missiles off the borders and shores of the United States? But wait a minute. We've already played this game once in history, right? In October 1962, the Soviet Union did just that, placing nuclear missiles 90 miles off the coast of Florida, citing that they were merely a defense to American aggression. In a TV address on October the 22nd, 1962, President John F. Kennedy notified Americans about the presence of the missiles. He explained his decision to enact a naval blockade around Cuba and made it clear that the United States was prepared to use military force if necessary to neutralize this perceived threat to our national security. Many people feared the world was on the brink of nuclear war following this news. However, disaster was avoided when the U.S. agreed to Soviet leader then Khrushchev and his offer to remove the Cuban missiles in exchange for the U.S. promising not to invade Cuba. President Kennedy also secretly agreed to remove U.S. missile systems from Turkey. Folks, flash forward 70 years and we are now perceived as the hostile aggressors across the world. The United States has deliberately armed allied nations such as Ukraine, Romania, and Poland and dared the Russians to sit back and take it. I don't blame Putin for his hesitancies. However, in no way does that mean I support his one-way mission to kill the innocent and to take over another sovereign nation. But I do ask, what would today's American response be if Russian nuclear missiles resurfaced in Cuba or perhaps Venezuela? Would Biden and the new war hawks in Washington consider war against Russia for such a move? In 1962, President Kennedy played the part of patience perfectly. In fact, despite being a Democrat in his day, he and those within his administration handled the Cuban Missile Crisis without blemish, fearful of allowing America to succumb to a nuclear war. But ladies and gentlemen, the United States, because of failed foreign policy and irresponsible leadership, we have set the stage for World War III. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a realist who sees real problems and natural strains at home and abroad. Despite the images on television and saber rattling within the halls of Congress and the White House, America does not need or want this war at this time. After all, no American blood has been shed, no casualties of our people. Our military has been free from attack. But for now, the past week, Ukrainian President Zelensky has begged for American planes and missiles to defend his country. But you see, ladies and gentlemen, Vladimir Putin does not care about the pilot's nationality. Still, if he or his generals see an American flag on the side of an F-15 as bombs are dropped on his soldiers, he will counter in like fashion. The significant difference in this showdown than from 1962 is the sheer number of nuclear weapons in the hands of the Soviets, which is now around 4,500. When compared to 1962, the Soviets only had about 20 ICBMs capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. Since 2018, American military contractors have staged hypothetical war games involving a U.S. NATO war with Russia. The death toll, ladies and gentlemen, surpassed 1 billion. In 1962, many Americans didn't believe in the strength of a sickly, womanizing president in JFK to lead the American way from a nuclear war. But now, I'm here to tell you that I have more hesitation in our current leadership. I cannot trust a man like Joe Biden. who doesn't know what day of the week it is, who he's even talking to, or how to put two sentences together to be tasked in keeping our nation out of this war. Joe Biden has killed our nation's domestic solvency and financial security, and now he and his inner circle look to destroy our country on a world stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the pain at the pump and the grocery store is just the beginning. Since our nation's founding, presidents and their administrations have looked to war to cover up and attempt to pull their nation out of financial ruin. As Biden-led inflation consumes us all here in America, do not play into the deceptive policies to lead our nation into another global war. In 1941, FDR continued these same statements. That is until the Empire of Japan decided to test our resolve and might. Today, on March the 12th, I'm here to say that Vladimir Putin has not attacked America, but only fought against our allies who have propped up, that we have propped up, and that way we have sold out for years. We have bounced our balls on the courts of Europe since the end of World War II, and now, unless provoked, should not engage the enemy to allow for our needless entry into another European war. Our country was founded on freedom, American freedom, and we cannot continue down a path of policing the world. That is the job of Almighty God and his ultimate plan for us all. Instead, we should rally behind the nationalism of our country, truly build and buy American, but make our military strength on a global stage that no government, no dictator, no madman would want to wait. Liberal presidents have made our nation weak, and now we must pay the cost or have others pay that in our stead. We are to blame for the atrocities occurring now in Ukraine. America has seen the results of its role as a junkyard dog. Only this time, if we miscalculate, like the Japanese in 1941, the body count will be more than we can bear. The United States is a stronghold of peace, but we have two allegiances: one, to our God, and two, to provide our nation and its people safety and security. In October 1962, JFK uttered these words during his national address. The 1930s taught us a clear lesson. Aggressive conduct, if allowed to go unchecked and unchallenged, ultimately leads to war. This nation is opposed to war. We are also true to our word. An unswerving objective, therefore, must be to prevent the use of these missiles against this or any other country, and to secure their withdrawal or elimination from the Western Hemisphere. Our policy has been one of patience and restraint, as befits a peaceful and a powerful nation, which leads a worldwide alliance. We have been determined not to be diverted from our central concerns by mere irritants and fanatics. But now, further action is required, and it is underway. And these actions may only be the beginning. We will not prematurely or unnecessarily risk the cost of worldwide nuclear war, in which even the fruits of victory would be the ashes in our mouths. But neither will we shrink from that risk at any time. It must be faced. The time is now, ladies and gentlemen. What will our response be? But more importantly, who do you trust to lead the American response? You have been listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast.